What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and how sweet is redemption? We are off to a grand final and broken in the process a 62-year-long drought. That's right. That's how long it had been since we'd beaten Hawthorn in a knockout final, grand finals, prelims, semi-finals. That's how long it had been, but we did it. The Cats got the job done against the Hawks to the tune of 30 points at the MCG on Friday night. We are now hours away from working out who our opponent is going to be. But there are, of course, some really good stories and a bad one from this particular game. And I want to break down all of that with you today. But let's start with the top level stuff. As I said, the Cats got the job done, 17-13, 115, beating the Hawks by 30 points. The Hawks scoring 13-7, 85. And as anyone who's watched that game will know, it was a wobbly, worrisome start. We'll scroll down to the worm here and have a bit of a look. The Hawks came out the blocks really, really well. The Cats weren't poor per se. We were getting our hands on the contested ball, but our disposal was pretty poor, and we really, really struggled to get the ball in an uncontested space. And so the Hawks' pressure was fantastic, and we really, really struggled. While they took their advantage, they were less frequent than us. We did control the ball, but we couldn't get the uncontested opportunities. And when the Hawks got it, they went up the other end and got some shots on goal. And a massive shout out to Mitch Lewis, who put in a pretty fantastic effort, especially in that first half, to set the Hawks up. But when you can see with about 5 minutes to go, the Cats started to regain some composure, started to get some control over the game. We got our first goal on the board, courtesy of Paddy Dangerfield, and then it was onwards and upwards from there as we started to pile them on. A little bit of a fight back here in the middle, and again, midway through the third quarter, but the Cats really piled on this block here between the latter half of the second quarter, and the first half of the third. Really put a wedge between the two teams that then essentially persisted for the rest of the game. Hawthorn didn't go away. They still continued to give it a crack, and we know what that club is like. We know what the history between these two teams is like, that you could never rule them out 100%. But there was some peace of mind with a good 5 to 10 minutes to go that the game was done. You felt the sting start to come out of it a little bit, and the Cats rolled home. There's a whole lot more, though, we're going to talk about from this particular matchup, including, of course, Tom Stewart. But we'll get to all of that right after this word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, before we get into the team stats, before we get into the player figures, let's, of course, take a moment to talk about Tom Stewart, who unfortunately has been concussed in this game in a tackle by Mabior Chol, who's probably, at face value initially, I didn't think there was a huge amount to it on Chol's part. But then upon watching the replay, you can see that he wrapped his arms up. I don't think there was any malice in the whole thing, to give him some credit. I don't think there was any malice. It's just one of those things that eventuated. Tom Stewart kind of fell to the ground, unable to brace for contact, hit his head. But initially, I mean, all fears, I think most of you were probably with me that were worried about his shoulder or his wrist, because he instantly went to grab those. But the concussion is what is actually stuck here. And with the concussion protocols being what they are, Tom Stewart is out for the grand final. And this is another reminder for the AFL that you should be having a pre-grand final bye, not a pre-finals bye. It's like people have been saying this for years, and you've been ignoring the message. And now all of a sudden, when one of the best players from a team is set to miss the grand final, look what happens. Maybe they'll finally pull their finger out of their ass and make a change, but we'll wait and see. Anyway, let's get into our team stats here and talk about the game in a little bit of a deeper level. As I said, Cats kind of controlled the game, and this is obviously the full-time stuff, but even through the first, Geelong controlled the ball. We just weren't doing a good job with it. Disposals, Geelong leads. Kicks, handballs, inside 50s. Again, there's that dominance for you. The thing that Geelong has done so well all year has been maximize opportunities going forward, provide as many opportunities in the forward 50 as possible, and then lock the ball in there. And we did a great job of that. We really did a great job of setting up the wall as well. So when Hawthorn dump kicked the ball out, there was someone there, Mark Blitzarves, Lawson Humphries, I spotted on quite a few occasions, being that floating man that was able to grab the ball and enter inside 50 once again, leading to this high number, leading to our high score, and leading to a win. Our disposal efficiency was good, but down, of course, there is that finals pressure that absolutely played a part in this thing. Efficiency inside 50, a little bit down for the Cats. And again, that's part of the finals experience, I would say. But considering that the weather, the last quarter and change, the rain started pouring. It wasn't absolutely teeming down, but the rain started to come, impacted the game just a little bit, made the ball a bit greasy. The Cats didn't waver. In fact, some of the marking from some of the Cats, and in particular Jeremy Cameron, was absolutely sensational through that last quarter and change, despite the fact that the ball would have started to become a little bit slippery. Free kicks, 19-16, not much to see for either team, really. The umpiring was largely pretty solid. The bouncing and the boundary throw-ins were pretty rubbish, but the decision-making itself was fine. The ruck was one of the big worries for me going into this particular matchup, but Mark Blitzarves did a fantastic job, and pretty much a lot of the matchups I spoke about during the Paul James show in the previews, the lead up to this game, pretty much eventuated from the way the handover would occur, allowing Sam DeConing to take on the big boy as he went rolling in for Hawthorn, allowing Blitzarves to then peel off and, as I mentioned before, play that kind of rebounding role, just filling the space. Worked out really, really nicely for us. Clearances, that's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. The whole lot, that is a beautiful picture if you're a Cats fan, especially the centre clearances. And you think about the likes of Jai Newcomb, who were very well held by Tom Atkins. Again, another one I told you all about a week or so ago. The way Geelong just commanded the ball in the midfield and the Hawthorn just could not put up a fight was exceptional. We won centre clearances 20-5. 5. That's huge. And then got the stoppage clearance game going as well. So massive shout out to the midfield unit, who were absolutely phenomenal. Contested possessions, uncontested. We worked our way into it with the uncontested game after that first quarter was done. The contested figures looking really, really good too. Turnovers, but much of a muchness. You've got your possession counts, no worries there. Hawthorn was a bit more kick marking, trying to slow it down as the game went on, trying to poke and pry their way through. Geelong's mark count, as they also got their kick mark game going, started to lift. The contested marking being the real highlight for both teams, though. Both teams did a really great job under the heat in that respect. You've got your scores, you've got defensive pressure. Both teams doing a great job in terms of locking the ball inside their 50s when the opportunity came along. But Geelong just simply did it better. And from there, that's your team stats. So let's focus on the players here. This is what we really want to hone in on. And I'm actually going to quickly begin. I don't normally do this, but let's start by looking at the Hawks, because I mentioned Jai Newcomb before. Still put in a solid performance with 20 disposals. But this was, everyone's been talking about Jai Newcomb as being the second coming of Dustin Martin. 4 from 4 when it came to best ranked player on the ground in all these finals. And he was squashed by Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins was one of the best players on the ground, took Newcomb out of the game, thrived himself, was absolutely sensational. So massive, massive shout out to the big axe. But a lot of these Hawthorn players were blunted pretty significantly. Meek, as I said, was a bit of a force at different points, was a bit of a concern, but was well held by a great team effort. Maybe Chol did some great things as well for the Hawks. But just across the board, you just see these Hawks players blunted. Watson did some great things, but could hardly get his hands on the ball. Massive props too, and I'm not that any of us really love him, but Jack Ginnivan put in a really solid, consistent performance for the Hawks as well. Dylan Moore and Carl Amon as well as real highlights for them. But there wasn't much to celebrate if you're a Hawthorn supporter in the end. So let's focus now on our Cats. And leading from the front in terms of the possession count was Bailey Smith, but of course the best player on the ground for the Cats was undoubtedly Patrick Dangerfield, who took this game by the scruff of the neck, was not going to cop the margin that was before us in that first quarter, grabbed the ball by the horns, picked everyone up, carried them on his shoulders, and drove us to the victory. It was absolutely phenomenal. He's 31 disposals. There was 13 score involvements. He kicked 3 goals himself. If I scroll across to goal assists, he had 2 of those as well. All of that from 78% of game time. He spent a lot more time in the midfield in this particular matchup. And I don't know how much of that was the circumstances. I don't know how much of that was the Tom Stewart thing and some of the pieces being moved around, or whether this was always going to be the case because we've been managing him all year. But he was absolutely amazing. Best player on the ground by an absolute mile. And I honestly think, despite the fact that we won by 5 goals and he kicked 3, I think without him, we may not have won this game. Just to get ourselves back into it in the first, he was the powerhouse that did all of that lifting. And you just knew, like, you could see it on the faces of the Hawthorn players. They just didn't know how to handle him. It's that relentless, dog-like aggression that so many players just don't have to the level that Patrick Dangerfield has. He was amazing. Brian Myers, Max Holmes, they were a couple of players who put in fantastic effort, but really worked their way into the game from that latter stages of the first quarter. Took a little while to kind of find what was working for them. They were kind of, I think, players that struggled based on the overall picture of the team in that first quarter, but really came into the game afterwards and did some pretty fantastic things, both getting a goal each. Tom Atkins, as I said, was absolutely wonderful. 11 tackles to go with that. And just a reminder for everyone that he is the player who's achieved the most tackles in any home and away season. It'll be any season all up by the time this finals campaign is done. You are an absolute rock star, Tom Atkins. Thank you for all that you do for us. Zach Guthrie stepped into the Tom Stewart role really, really well when Tom Stewart went down. He has always been this Tom Stewart 2.0 version that's been sitting there waiting in the wings. And whenever Tom Stewart goes down, he steps it up a gear, and he was wonderful as well with the rebound plays. Sam De Koning, a very smart game. Had some moments he'd like to forget. There was a few butchered disposals at different stages, and one kick that when you're in a prelim final, I just could not believe skewed off his foot the way that it did. But thankfully the umpire was wise enough to go, that was just a shank and not a deliberate out of bounds. And, became a throw in, but, he was absolutely fantastic. Having to move between a few different players, working off Gunston at points, working off, I've just gone blank on his name. Just kicked all those goals for the Hawks. Mitch Lewis at points. And then, of course, dealing with Chol for a good chunk of time as well. He was fantastic, one of his best games of the season. Jeremy Cameron lit it up and could have blown this thing apart at different stages. Not because he had a huge number of opportunities, but every time he got an opportunity, every time the ball was in his presence, there was a bit of spice. There was a bit of magic going on. I was really impressed. Tyson Stengel, one of his best games in a long time, and it's great to see that come prelim final time, come the crunch and the knockout, he just found his range once again. His kicking for goal has been pretty wobbly for the last month or so, and he never looked like missing. He showed poise and class and nailed his shots, and it was so good to see. Brad Close and Sean Manor, awesome as well as link-up players. Sean Manor maybe a quieter game, but again, every time the ball went near him, you knew that he was going to execute, and he did a fantastic job in that regard. Brad Close, again, some of those link-up plays, the chain handballs, he was an important cog in the machine on the way through. Ollie Dempsey as well could have blown that game open as well, had it not been for a couple uncharacteristic shanks from him at stages too. Jai Clark with 14 disposals is someone that I think a lot of people are going to overlook. This was probably his best game for the Cats. He was the sub. He came in when Tom Stewart went down, and he was so hostile, so aggressive, and took the game on over and over. I am actually shocked that he hasn't registered a tackle there. Absolutely stunned that there is no tackle against his name, because he attacked that ball, attacked the players. He did not back down. Now, I think maybe in some part, actually, that might be why the tackle count is non-existent, because and I think maybe in some respects it's the inexperience and still kind of learning the game, but there were times when perhaps he could have tried to corral, and he just, like a dog, chased him, forcing the Hawthorn players to dispose of the ball. And he's still got that slider frame, so they could probably free the arms a little bit and dispose of it from there. But he was fantastic. If he plays in the grand final next week, I won't be disappointed. Jack Bowes really solid as well. Again, that same sort of aggression that we saw from Jai Clark, really important at different stages. Mark Litzar is one of the best players on the ground with his 11 tackles, 29 disposals and a goal. 29 hit-outs, 12 disposals and a goal was huge against Lloyd Meek. Jack Martin and Oisin Mullen popped up at points, did some really good things. Lawson Humphries is just continuing to not have his best season in the world, but be really effective whenever the ball is in hand. Tom Stewart, the sub, or the subbed out player, Connor O'Sullivan. Wobbly start early on, but really came into the game and was poised and controlled when he needed to be. Mark O'Connor, Shannon Neal, Jack Henry all sold as well. Jack Henry, I've already seen the criticisms from a few people in post-game live. Please let's not lose sight of the fact that he also should have 2 goals. He took that really important mark that ended up being gifted to Dangerfield as a free kick. Shannon Neal clunked that thing. It really should have been Shannon Neal's ball as far as I'm concerned. And he would have had 2 goals because he's a deadeye. But he did what was required of him, and I'm really, really happy with his output. Let's also not forget he is still young and going to get better and better and better. And might have Charlie Curnow for company next year if you believe some of the rumblings coming out in the last 24, 48 hours or so. Jack Henry, I thought he was done. When he went down in that first quarter, and I was kind of right behind him in my fancy little corporate box suite that I was in, he went down and could not put any pressure through that foot as he tried to get up. And I was panicking. Then Tom Stewart went down a few minutes later. I thought, oh, no, we're in all sorts here. We're done. He came back. It sounds like there might have been some nerve stuff, which is why he just couldn't put anything through the foot initially. The painkillers probably kicked in and helped a little bit as well. And from all reports, according to Chris Scott, he's going to be right to go for the grand final. There's no real concerns about that. So we're looking to replace Tom Stewart, and it's really, really unfortunate that's the case. But we're in a really good place going into the grand final, and we're sitting here now just waiting to find out who our opponent is. That's the wrap on this game. Thank you all for having checked out our match reaction. Check out Post-Game Live if you haven't already. The Paul James Show will be back on Monday, where we'll look a little bit at what went on this weekend, but we'll, of course, be focusing quite heavily on the Brownlow medal. Baslow, hopefully he can come away with a Brownlow, but doesn't matter. We're not here for the individual accolades. We're all about premiership success, and we have a grand final to play next Saturday. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to like it, subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube, and check out all of the content that we're producing from myself, Ben, and the chaps. Lots of awesome stuff to see. I've alluded to a few things, and there's much more to come. If you enjoy all of it, consider checking out our Patreon, patreon.com/thehoopscrew. We can get early access, exclusive content, and extended content. I hope that you enjoy it. In terms of socials, you'll find me at Paul James Games. That's Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. The Hoops Crew you'll find at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong, everyone. We're off to the grand final, and hopefully we come away with some silverware. Remain Geelong strong, everyone. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you later.